Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Thom Walters. He is a meditation instruction. He's a founder of Zen Commuter. He offers relief to those who suffer from anxiety. As a meditator with over 40 years experience and the host of the widely popular Zen Commuter and Common in 5 podcasts, he is deeply skilled at helping his students get free of the pain that accompanies anxiety and depression. Welcome to the show, Thom.
Ajay, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to our talk today.
You are welcome to the show, Thom. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk about. We'll be talking about how one can become calmer, wiser, and happier through meditation.
Indeed.
So I want to understand, a lot of people, meditation is a very common word, Thom. But I want to understand for the audience, what is meditation really? When you meditate, what happens? Do you close the eyes and things start changing? We close the eyes while sleeping also, then also things change. How is it different than that and this particular thing?
That's the perfect question to start things off with, because even though meditation is very widespread, it's still very people are still very unsure what it is. The biggest misperception I hear from people is like, I want to learn how to meditate so I can clear my mind. I'm like, well, you are in the wrong place, because meditation isn't about clearing your mind. It's about creating a healthy relationship with our thoughts. The only time we're not going to have any thoughts is when we have passed from this physical body. So that's the biggest thing. So I'm glad that you asked that question, because that is absolutely it. So we get to a point where we do indeed close our eyes, but that doesn't have to be all the cases. Many times people meditate with their eyes open, but only at what's called kind of like a half mast, meaning that they're not just open. They're just kind of fixing at a place in the probably about 5 feet away from them. So just a soft gaze is what we have. But for the most part, eyes do close. The one thing that starts off many meditations is breathing. And that is taking nice diaphragmatic breaths, expanding that belly, abdomen, depending on how you feel about the word belly. And also, because what happens is when we expand the diaphragm, when we take those nice, full, deep breaths in through our nose, hold it, and then expel it through our mouth, that sends a signal from the diaphragm to the brain to say, whatever fear that you thought was here is no longer here. It's when we get stressed, we have that fight or flight mechanism that triggers all that stress response. But when we have that diaphragmatic breathing, that signal sends a message to the brain to say, yeah, there's no danger here. So the body starts slowing down the heart, slowing down breathing, bringing blood back to feet, toes, and all those things. Cortisol, adrenaline, all those things are decreased there. So basically, the first step is a physiological step, just like I talked about. But then again, we only have the ability to have one thought at a time. So even though it seems like our brains are going a mile a minute, we've got 20 million thoughts in our head, our brains can only process one at a time. So we focus on one thing. Many times it's the breath, but there's also mantras, music, things of that nature. But when we sit in meditation, we close our eyes, if that's what we're choosing to do, we take those deep breaths. If our mind becomes active and our mind starts getting ramped up, we say, okay, cool, I'm having a thought. I acknowledge the thought, don't try and push it out. And then you just shift your attention back to the focus, whether it be the mantra, whether it be the breath or what have you. And because we can only have one thought at a time, then all those others kind of drift to the side. And in the beginning, it's challenging because it's a lot of redirection. But that's the very nature of meditation. It allows us to have an understanding of our thoughts, because when we're in our day-to-day lives, we don't understand when we're thinking erroneously, when we're thinking worrisome thoughts, anxious thoughts, any thoughts. We just are kind of on autopilot and we're reacting. So it starts with a physiological, then it's just training the brain. In fact, that's what I tell my students. Meditation is the training of the brain to have one focus intently and at a time. So when we have one focus, then all those other thoughts just drift by the wayside. So That is the meditation in a nutshell, I should say, Ajay.
Okay, okay. What? How do we know if we are trying to pass a message to our brain through meditation? Then meditation itself is a tool. We can use this tool to achieve many things. Am I right in my understanding? Correct me if I am wrong, Thom. But help us understand how can and a tool can be utilized for so many things because breathing. So how does do should people look at this tool? How to best wield this tool to make your life better? What are the other uses of this tool? If you can help us understand in a simple person's understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Obviously, stress is just the worst. Obviously, that's an understatement. But when we have an active mind, when we're having that fight or flight response activated all the time, it's wreaking havoc with our body. Back in the caveman days, it was very necessary to have that fight or flight. You're like, oh, there's a tiger. Okay, my body
Right.
starts to get all ramped up to get either away from that or fight that or what have you. But in our culture today, everything's a tiger. So, meaning that everything triggers that stress response. So, meditation already allows us the ability to deactivate that stress response. So, that's one benefit. So, from a physiological standpoint, from a physical standpoint, we're decreasing the level of stress. So, whenever we have a consistent meditation practice, that's already limiting the amount of stress or mitigating the amount of stress that we have. The other great benefit about meditation, which makes it such a great tool, like you had mentioned, is the ability to discern the reality of thoughts, meaning that when we wake up in the morning and we go out into the world, we are just bombarded by thoughts of other people, whether that be media, whether that be entertainment, whether that be bosses, significant others, and those thoughts are just hitting us, and we're reacting to those as opposed to responding to them. We're just thinking that those things have value and that whatever people are saying around us becomes part of who we are. But to that point, with a meditation practice, we're not looking outside for validation. We're turning inwardly to see what has meaning for us. So, one of the things I talk about many times is that when we have that meditation practice, when we have a meditation practice, we're kind of cocooned in a wonderful way, meaning that all those pressures that are coming at us from society are just kind of bouncing off. It's like, okay, I'm inwardly, turning inwardly. So I understand what has meaning for me, what has value for me. So it's a very introspective process, which really is beneficial on so many levels because many times we wear different masks in society. Like, oh, we got to put on this face for our boss, this face for our parents, girlfriend, boyfriend. But when we have an meditation practice, we're like, world, I am finding out who I am. I have found out who I am. I don't need to put on any other masks. And there's a level of calm that comes from not having to wear all those different masks. You're like, this is me. I've done a lot of work to find out who I am through my meditation practice, through my introspection. So that introspection tool is absolutely pivotal. So that's definitely one of the ways that meditation can help. So it also decreases stress, but also allows us that introspection so that we can see what has meaning for us.
Right, right, Thom. So meditation can be done by anyone at any place at any point in time.
Correct.
And even a few minutes of meditating or getting yourself together with your breath and whatever things associated is sounds very simple. But then there are many people who are not able to meditate. If they have got some few moments, they want their phone in their hand. Why is it so? Even many people who want to meditate, they close their eyes, but they are not able to. Why
Right.
is it becoming what a simple thing becomes so difficult for them?
Well, you hit it right on the head by talking about the length of time. Because meditation is so popular now, you see on Instagram or on Twitter, it's like, oh, I meditated for an hour. I meditated for an hour and a half. I've got this week-long retreat where I've just meditated for an entire day. And I think anybody who's a beginner is like, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't sit for an hour." So that expectation already sets up that kind of stress, believe it or not. But to your point, absolutely. When I teach students, I don't say, yeah, we're going to be meditating for 20 minutes today. I'm like, no, brand spanking out of the gate. No, we're going to meditate for 2 minutes. we're going to quiet our minds for 2 minutes. And even that may seem a lot, but as we become more and more proficient, as we have a daily practice, it'll get longer and longer. And much like I was talking about before, our culture here in the United States, and maybe it's the same in India as well, and I would imagine it is that our culture says, produce, do, always be moving, always be active, always be contributing. Whereas meditation is the exact opposite, obviously. So much like I said, if you're a beginning meditator, you don't understand that society is basically saying, move, move, move. And you're just reacting. So when you sit down, you're like, I shouldn't be sitting. I should be moving. I should be doing something. So that very nature of meditation or that creates that stress. But much like you said, when we start off very slowly and just go gradually, it becomes easier and easier. Many times I tell people, they come to me like, Thom, I can't sit still. I'm not gonna be able to meditate. I'm like, oh, and I kind of joke with them and say, I'm like, wow, you must be a real pain to go to the movies with, or to sit, or sit at a
Right.
church service. I'm like, God, you must be like just crawling around in your seat. They're like, no, I can watch a movie. I'm like, oh, so you can sit still and you're choosing not to. So that awakening is very beneficial for people. So yeah, in the beginning, it's challenging. But because, like I said, because when we have that introspective process, we start to learn that like society is telling me to move. I'm like, I'm not society. I have to do what works for me. So when we work through all those things, it becomes easier and easier. And to your point, absolutely everybody can meditate. The only people that I have to address differently are people with profound trauma. So the very nature of meditation is obviously to close our eyes and go inwardly. If somebody has had a profound trauma, we have to deal with that in a different way. But that's very, very rare. Probably like like 5%, I would imagine. But all the other people, same practice, same process, and everybody can meditate.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me ask you something for uh, a wider understanding. Maybe this benefit will help them, look at meditation differently. When we sleep, it helps, rejuvenate us, uh, clear our mind, body, with our digestion, everything. It happens at the same time. But that takes a couple of hours, more hours, and that's why they say sleep at least for 8 hours. But if we meditate, in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, we achieve a whole lot of things. Almost like what sleep does, both are not the same thing, but many a times it is, few things are same and both are, rejuvenating for the body.
Right.
How would you like to explain the benefits of meditation along with in the with the example of sleep itself, so that they find that will take 8 hours. Here you can give 8 minutes, and you will find it's a compounded sort of a benefit that you are getting. How do you see that?
That's a great question. And one thing I would say is that our brains operate on different levels. We have different brainwave patterns. When we are sleeping, we have a certain brainwave pattern. When we are meditating, it's a similar brainwave pattern. So, to your point, there is a similarity between sleeping and meditating. However, hopefully, when we're sleeping, we don't have that fight or flight mechanism going on in the background. We kind of just shut down, for want of a better word. If we can get to sleep, for those people that don't suffer from insomnia. But so that isn't going on. But to my point earlier too, is that when we meditate, we shut down that stress response as well. And much like I said earlier, stress impacts our body in very negative ways. I mean, think about suppose you were tasked with a project that was very mentally taxing, and so you said to somebody, okay, I want you to do that for 8 hours. Your day is to just think about this project for 8 hours. It's very mentally taxing. At the end of the day, you'd be like, oh, wow, that was quite a day, because you are expending all that energy. With meditation, we find ways to mitigate that, meaning that, uh, to be honest, if we're out in the world, all those thoughts that are coming to us are kind of sapping our energy. So, much like you said, when we're sleeping, nobody's asking for anything, hopefully, and we're a bit more relaxed. When we meditate, we have the ability to do the exact same thing. It's like, okay, we're not being sapped of energy because reacting to all those different thoughts. We're like, cool, I'm in a nice chill space. So I don't have to be jumping through all these hoops. And in so I'm like, I'm relaxed, I'm calm because I'm not jumping around through hoops and responding to everything. So that's where that link is. When we're sleeping, we're not responding, reacting. When we're meditating, we have the ability to do that when we're awake. So that's a great. I'm so happy that you're able to put those two things together because I think it's very important to help people understand.
Thank you. Now, Tom, you talk about becoming calmer, wiser, and happier. What is it? Do you achieve all these things in the same meditation, or you have to tell your mind what you want to achieve? Again, coming to the tool, what you want to achieve through this tool. Is it going to be three different processes, or you get in one process itself? Help us understand that.
That is a great question because one of the things I tell people on Zen Commuter and Calmer in 5, more so on Zen Commuter, is that when I meditate, it changes every day. With a daily practice, there are days I can sit down on my cushion or in my chair and my mind might be quieter. And when it is quieter, I might receive wisdom from other sources, tapping into my higher self. Um, but one of the things I always tell people is like, if we think that meditation is going to be eye-opening and surreal and sublime every time we sit down, you're in for a big, big surprise because it's not like that. And to your point, we don't want to go into a meditation with the expectations like, okay, I'm going to meditate. So I want to feel this, do this. No, we just allow things to be as they are. And that is one of the hugest benefits of meditation because if we think about our lives, we have so many expectations as to how things should be. With meditation, we're just like, how it is how it is. And when we meditate, we develop that mentality for our quote waking life as well. We just say, instead of trying to push or rail against something that's happening, we just say, it is happening. How I respond is what's going to create peace or chaos, heaven or hell. But thinking about the calmer, wiser, and happier, whenever you meditate, there's going to be a physiological change. So you're always going to be calmer. Wisdom, it'll come and go depending on where you are in meditation. I've received guidance from in my meditations, but again, not every day. Happier, man, if you're just not just not reacting to stress every day and you're seeing things as they are and just saying, cool, it is. I'm not going to push anything, shove anything, a square peg in a round hole. I'm just going to be here and just be along for the ride. And so on some level, they do all happen all at the same time. But it's very subtle. Some days it's very overt, but mostly it's subtle. But with a meditation practice, just that mitigation of stress just brings such a level of peace. And when we have that ability to sit still and be introspective, we start to understand who we are. I mean, one of the challenges that we have, many people have, is not knowing who they are. And, like I said before, putting on those masks, you're like, okay, now I'm business Tom. So I got to do this, and this. I'm like, oh, I'm son Tom. So I got to do this, and this. When we have that introspective and just say, hey, this is who I am. Take me or leave me. And if you leave me, no worries. Different paths, no worries. So that's how we arrive at calmer, wiser, and happier, hopefully all together.
Absolutely, absolutely, Tom. So a lot of time, let's look at it from the point of depression and anxiety, and this is a part of our lives. Whether artificially we have created it for ourselves, or many a times it's a genuine case where we may need to go to a therapist or or psychologist. What can how much can meditation help here? How do you utilize meditation in different situations, in office, at home, or wherever? Even if you are alone, your stress, the stress can still make you very stressed and anxious. How
Right.
do you deal with that with meditation, and what it can do, what it cannot do? Then you go to a doctor. That is very much required.
Great question. Because you are right. There are roughly 39 people in the United States suffer from some form of anxiety. Now, when anxiety, and that is a broad range of anxiety, mine are worrying to like wake up and are just almost paralyzed by like worrisome thoughts. when it gets to that point, obviously it's going to be in your best interest to go to a therapist so they can kind of delve into, say, okay, where is this anxiety coming from? What is triggering this anxiety? So a therapist is absolutely helpful, but you can't have a therapist in your pocket literally 24/7
Right.
to say, okay, that's where meditation comes in. So if we feel ourselves starting to get amped up and anxious, either ruminating on the future or the past, we have those things that we can do, as simple as those deep breaths. I mean, meditation is very beneficial, but much like I talked about before with the diaphragm and the vagus nerve that sends that signal to the brain, when we take 4 nice deep breaths, that's going to deactivate that stress response. So in between times when you're seeing your therapist, in your day to day, if you're like feel yourself getting ramped up, if you have the ability to meditate, yeah, absolutely, this can be helpful. But I've told many people working with corporations, I'm like, step into a stall in the men's room and just take those nice deep breaths in through our nose for a count of 4. We're going to hold that breath for a count of 7, and then let it out through our mouth for a count of 8. 3 to 4 deep breaths trigger that relaxation response. So that already deactivates that stress response. So that's going to be beneficial as well. And one of the other things, even though there are so many different types of meditation, one of the ones that is going to be most beneficial for people suffering from anxiety is a mindfulness meditation. And we've obviously heard of mindfulness talked about on many occasions. But when we are anxious, we are not grounded in this moment. If we literally brought our attention to this moment exactly, no anxiety would exist. Anxiety comes from thinking about, like, what if I lose my house? What if I get fired?
Right.
What if somebody steals my car? All those thoughts in the future are ramping up the body. And same thing. It's like, oh, you know what? I was such a so-and-so to my girlfriend, boyfriend. Like, we ruminate about the past. We perseverate on the future and the worries in the future. When we have a meditation practice, a mindfulness meditation practice that brings us right into this moment, then that stress and that anxiety just dissipates quite easily, believe it or not. So those mindfulness meditations are very helpful in that. And those are the things that we can do between therapy sessions, when we're at work, when we're at home, obviously not when we're driving or on a treadmill, but when we have a moment to ourselves. Those are the things that are going to be most beneficial for us when those thoughts start getting ramped up.
Right, right, Tom. Let me understand from this point. You you are a meditation instructor. So
Mhm.
people come to you, students come to you. What is it that they generally come to you with regards to meditation? What are their pain points, or what is it that they want to achieve? It is very obvious, but I am curious to understand from you.
Yeah, it's not an obvious question at all. But I usually can break it down into 2 categories. One of them was one that you just talked about. They're like, dude, my brain is going all over the place. I'm like, I just feel like I am amped up every minute of every day. So there is that level where people are just like, I want my mind to quiet down just a little bit. I know I'm not going to clear it. Well, they don't know that, but I tell them, like, we're not going to clear your mind, but we're going to make it so that you have an interaction with your thoughts. You just say, cool, there's a thought, as opposed to like, there's a thought, and getting that reaction. We can just look at it very objectively. So many people come to me to say, okay, I just want to be calmer. I want to have peace of mind. So that's a big piece. But the other thing is a bit more esoteric. And to be honest, it's the thing that I find more beneficial, well, for me, but one of the things I enjoy instructing in regards to meditation as well. And that is connecting to source, or having a more spiritual practice, not religious per se. I mean, certainly religion can enter into that, but just a spiritual practice where we connect to a higher version of ourselves, a version of ourselves that is pretty much just comes from love and doesn't have a lot of worry or fear or angst. So those are the 2 camps when people come to me. They're like, my mind is all over the place, or like, I kind of want to find out what has meaning for me. What is life? Obviously, those are very 2 different 2 different standpoints, but I love them both. And be honest with you, when I'm teaching corporations, I love the trajectory going from that, because many times companies will ask me, like, to teach meditation, like, oh yeah, we want to make sure that our people are happier, healthier, more focused. So for work, obviously, they want to be more attentive, more focused. I'm like, yeah, I can do all that. But many times the people that I teach have had no idea of what a quiet mind is. So I'm teaching them how to meditate for attention, for focus, for creativity. And they're like, yeah, cool, this is working. But then they have those moments where, like, I was sitting on my cushion and I saw this image or I had this feeling. I'm like, is that normal, or like what happens? And then we start moving that that trajectory changes to, okay, now that you have a quiet mind and you're not reacting to the world from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed, there's a whole world in there that we can explore. And a meditation is a perfect way to explore the world that you don't see, but is impacting on you nonetheless. So those are the two camps that people come to me from to learn meditation.
Right, right. Do you yourself ever get stressed, Thom? And how do you use meditation or any other form to de-stress? How does it work for you?
Yep, absolutely. So I am human, so I do get stressed. But one of the things I do like is that stress is my default, or is my exception, not my default. And because of a meditation practice, one of the other things that's beneficial from a meditative standpoint is an awareness of our bodies. Many times, people that don't have a meditation practice, they are they have no idea that they're under constant stress. Stress has been with them so much that a stressful being is their norm, and they don't think about stress being stress until it gets really, really high. One of the things that's beneficial for me from a meditation practice is that very thing. When I'm in the day, I'm like something's off. I'm like, I am starting to feel like a little ramped up, and to that point, I just do what I do. Either if I have the time, I'll meditate, and if I don't have the time, I'll take those deep breaths. But just that awareness too that we're stressing allows us to say, okay, I can take those deep breaths, I can meditate, I can go for a walk. But so yes, I do stress. It is rare, but I'm thankful that it happens because it helps me understand the peace that I experience, that comes from a meditation practice. But to that point, yeah, I stress. And minimally, but I
Right,
stress. I'm still human for
right,
now.
right, right, right. So the good benefit is, if you live in that calm state of mind, then any little bit of thing that is a bit off, or anything that is going to disturb you, that thought you can figure out,
Yeah.
and just you can address it. Otherwise, it's like if you are always stressed, then one more thought will not attract your attention. It's like sitting by living by the roadside, then you would not know what heavy traffic is all about. But if you are calmer, in a calmer state of mind, anything which is niggling or which is going to be difficult for you, you can just address it immediately, because this is something new for your mind itself.
Yeah, that's a perfect thing because that awareness is everything. That awareness of body awareness for stress, but yeah, just those little things to see how to look at things. And like you said, when you have that meditation practice, when you're in touch with your body and in touch with your calm, you're like, hmm, something's off. Like, and then you just kind of tune into your body, tune into your mind. Like, okay, to your point, like, yeah, let's nip this in the bud before it gets really big.
Absolutely. There is much to learn, and I guess meditation is as simple as you can make it, and it will become as difficult as you want to make it or as you see it. That is where there is much to learn from you about all this. So, what is it that how do people learn more about it from you? Tell us a bit about Zen Commuter. You also have a podcast by that name. You are the podcast host. Tell us, so that people you know take out as much good out of you in all different forms that you give to the world.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. I would say the best way to deepen your meditation practice, learn about your meditation practice, you can head on out to my website, obviously, zencommuter.com, or listen to the podcast, both Comran 5 and Zen Commuter. Zen Commuter, I meet with a variety of different meditation instructors, energy healers, a variety of people that are meditation based, and we learn a lot from them. But also, there are episodes that I just host on my own to talk about deepening our practice, exploring different practices, because one of the things that's very important too is a consistent meditation practice. For meditation to be beneficial, we have to do it every day. And it's not laborious, but I'm sure that many people that have not done meditation would think that it could be. So we talk about different ways to meditate. So there are Vipassana, there are Zazen, Tonglen. There are a variety of different meditation practices that I talk about on Zen Commuter. But yeah, if you want to go about the courses that I offer and how I teach, then zencommuter.com is the best place to go to. And if you want to listen as you're driving, Zen Commuter podcast and Calmer in 5. Calmer in 5 is obviously a little shorter. And it's not so much meditation based, but it's more focused on calm, obviously, but just ways that we can tweak our thinking to see things in a way where we're not stressed and we're not thinking about all the things that are going wrong with the world or with our lives. We just had kind of tweak our thinking, change our perspective to say, yeah, you know what? Life's not that bad. There are ups, there are downs, but it could be worse. So those are the best ways to get in touch with me and to learn a bit more about meditation.
Wonderful. But with this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Ajay, thank you so much today.